Hey, it's Alejandro Duarte from Vaadin, and in this video I'm going to show you how to implement authentication and authorization in a Vaadin Flow application. So I'm going to start by creating a new project here with an empty view for the login. And maybe let's create a couple of views. Home and then a master detail, which is going to be like an admin. We don't really care where it is here. It's just so that we have something to show, something more interesting to show on the screen. Out example is going to be the name of this project, and I'm going to use Vaadin 17. Let's download that. And I'm going to import this Maven project in IntelliJ IDEA. And I want to configure a couple of things here, so maybe let's wait until this finishes to avoid problems. Okay, so this is using Java 8. Let's use Java 15. 8 is too old, and it's not as fast and as secure and feature-rich as 15. And let's configure the project here as well. In the IDE, I think that's where I need. Maybe I needed to do something more here, which is reload the Maven project. Okay. Now the other thing I want to do is to remove this launch util that kind of opens the browser anytime I start the application. I don't like. I want to have control of the browser and when tabs open. Anyway, so the login view, right? So for the login view, let's implement something here. New text field with username. Very nice. New password field. Password. Good. Then we can add those here, username, password. I'm going to add also a title here, welcome, and we probably need a button, login. All right, let's try to run this application and see what we have got. All right, it's done. Localhost 8080. So yeah, we have all the views, but I really don't like how this looks like. Let's do something about it, and let me arrange the screen like that. Okay, this is indexing maybe. Now it is indexing. So there is a login view file that we can use for that. So if I change this to a grid, let's see, would that help? Kind of. Now padding, maybe let's use something like 33%, just so that we have something a bit nicer, right? Okay, of course this doesn't work, and maybe we don't want to show the menu here, right, in the login view, but that's very easy to fix because we have the layout here. And actually, let's remove the route alias. You can leave it if you want, but it's going to be handy while we develop to be able to see which routes are available. So let's compile that. And okay, that's what I was talking about. So now we have admin, home, and login. Those are the routes that are available. So we are developing this right now. It looks much better now. Okay, so this view is ready. So first problem, even when we don't see the options, they are still there. So I can go to /admin if I know the URL and do things. We don't want that. So we need to solve that problem. That's the first step. How can we solve that? Well, if we go to the admin view and remove the route annotation, it's not going to be available. And the same for any other view that is not public. Very good. Let's compile. Now I should get the list of available routes. Admin and home are not there, only login. Very nice. So now I want to show the actual interface when I log in. So let's start doing that. So first, we would need some kind of entity to store the information about users, right? And we need to store that in a database. So we're going to create an entity for that. And there's one here, person, and it says that it extends abstract entity. And I can see why, because there are some useful methods there, like hash code equals, but mostly the ID, and well, the other ones as well, because they are based on the ID. But we're going to use that since it's ready. So abstract entity. Very nice. Now we need a string for the username. We need a string for the password. And we need a role. Now the role doesn't exist. Let's create that as an enum right there. User and admin. There are only two roles in this example. And well, password, you should never store the password plain, right? You should store a hash or something like that. You know what? We're gonna do it. So let's do that, hash. And since we're doing everything, let's use also salt for this hash. You'll see it in a minute. It's very easy. Let's create a constructor. Well, first I need one for hibernate. And then I need one that takes a username, a plain password, and a role. Okay, so the role, we can assign those as well over here. But the password, for the password, we need to do something special. We need to encrypt this password before we are going to, store it in the database. So I'm going to use digest utils from Apache Commons codec library. This method that returns a string, and we're going to take that password, right? And this is going to be the password hash. Now, if two users have the same password, this is going to return the same hash, right? It's going to be encrypted in the same way. That's when the password salt is useful, because we can create a random string. I'm going to use this one from Apache Commons as well. And it has a random method with, let's say, 32 characters. You need to research what's a good number there. I'm going to leave that as an exercise. And yeah, now when we encrypt this, we append that password salt that we created randomly. So if two users have the same password, the hash is going to be different for both of them. And we probably need a method to check a password. Let's take a plain password here. Plain password. And we return, we need to compare this. So this is, we're doing the same algorithm here, but with this password that comes maybe from a user interface or some service. And we compare that to the password hash that we have in this object, which came from the database, right? So if that's true, then we can say that the password is correct. And we don't have the passwords plain anymore. So I encourage you to do something like this in every single project you work or similar. All right, anyway, so let's continue. We need garrison service for this, for JPA to work, and we have the entity class ready. Now, if we have an entity, we need a repository, user repository, to be able to access to these objects. So let's extend JPA repository of user. I think it was integer. Let's actually double check because I'm not sure. Oh, it came from abstract entity. That's integer. Okay, yeah, that is correct. And it's actually not a class but an interface. And from here, well, we would have already a lot of methods, but we need to add one. I don't need to type public here. So user, let's return a user, and let's get by what was it, username, I think. Get by username, yeah, something like that. Okay, that's it. So we have a repository. We could create also a service, but I'm going to skip that. I'm going to use the repository so we don't spend too much time on that. But you should create maybe a service class. Anyway, now we probably need to generate some users so we can play it with the application. So let's inject the user repository. And over here, I'm going to use that to create or to save a new user. Let's say user, the password is going to be role. It's going to be user, and let's create another one of type or role admin with these credentials, admin A. Very good. So we have some data we can play with. So that was very backend kind of stuff. Now let's get back to the login view. We were here. So when we click this button, we need to do the authentication. So it kind of makes sense to have a service for that. I'm going to call it auth service. We're going to create it in a moment. And the auth service, you can call something like authenticate. And you pass the username, get value, and password, get value. And once you have done that, and if everything was all right, then we can navigate to home, for example. Okay. This doesn't exist, so we need to create this class, and let's create that in the service package. Good. And we need to create this method. This was the username, and this was the password. All right, that's good. So what do we need to do here? We need to use the user repository to try to find that user. So user repository dot get by username. We created that, remember, or we defined that, and we pass the username. Now we need to check if the user, well, first if it's not null, and if the user confirms that the password is correct. We know at this point, at this line, we know that we need to authenticate the user. Otherwise, we can throw an exception. Throw new exception. And actually, we shouldn't throw just exception. It's much better if we create a new exception for that. So auth exception, something like this, and we throw that instead. Okay, very nice. Now this is going to complain because we need to try to do this, right? it's kind of everything succeeded. And if not, we show a notification, for example. Show wrong credentials, or whatever you want to show there, or do with the UI. You can do it here. All right, very good. So now we are not doing much really in terms of the functionality, but we are checking stuff and we have all the backend ready. So if authentication succeeded, we need to do something. We're kind of defining now the routes. Remember that we took this away, the route annotation here and in the admin view as well. Well, we need to now create those at runtime depending on the role of the user. So if you think about it, a route is three things. It has three parts. One of them is the slash something, so the route, we can call it like that. Then the component or the view that's going to be shown, and then the menu option, or how to present that in the user interface. So three things. So for that we can create a record, a Java record, authorized route, and it has these three things. So it was route, then the name, and the component, which is a class, and not any class. It has to extend component from Vaadin, and this is the view. All right. Now this is not compiling because probably I didn't configure my project well, but let's see if this fixes the problem. Is it fixed or not? Oh yeah, it is. Okay, very good. Back to where we were trying to make progress, right? So we need to build these routes, or we can use this record kind of to express the routes that we have. So it kind of makes sense to have maybe a create routes method here, and it should build these routes depending on the role. So we have it here. And for creating the routes, we need also to define which routes are available per role. So we can create a this time public method that returns a list of these objects, authorized route. And let's call this get authorized routes for a certain role. So we can get the authorized routes and then here programmatically define them for Vaadin. So how can let's start with that. How can we get the authorized routes? Well, one way is to programmatically check if this role equals user, then we do something else. If the role equals admin, we do something else, right? And we create a new array list, for example, of authorized route. Very good. And we return that. Yep. These are the routes. Now we need to build the routes here. And I like to do this, so I can change with bar. It's much shorter. Anyway, if it's the user, then we need to add a new authorized route with /home view, or sorry, it was the name first, home, and then home view.class. That's it. For the admin, we need that, but we also need the admin view. and that's it. Now you can read this, you can build this from a database or whatever, and this doesn't need to be a record or anything. It could be a normal class and an entity. It's just that it's very easy to do it right now like that. All right, now we can get these authorized routes for this row, right? And for each one, we need to create a new route for Vaadin, kind of register a new route so that we can actually go there in the browser. And so for that, there is a class called route configuration that has this method for session scope, and we can define routes for this session, for the session that corresponds to the user, right? Or for all the whole application, but it does make sense here. So it's for this session, we're going to set a new route, and it's going to have the following. So first, it has the path, which is for us it was route. We could have called that path actually, but anyway, let's save it as is. Then route.view, and we need we can specify the layout. It was a main layout, I guess, or main view. Okay, it was view for some reason. It's view. Anyway, maybe it makes sense. Very good. So we have now the routes for Vaadin for this session, and they depend on the kind of row. So maybe we can try that, because once we have the routes registered here, we should be able to go to /home at least for both kind of users. All right, so let's try that. If I didn't make any mistakes, which apparently I did. I guess I need to recompile or restart the application because I changed the configuration at some point. Right, this is different. Okay, auth service is being injected here. Where was it? The login view, but it's not a service, so of course it's gonna fail. I forgot to add that. Let's fix it. And let's check the log here, if I can open it. There we go. Now it seems to be working. Let's see which views are available. Only login, which is good. Okay, another error. Let's see. Okay, so we have this problem because the main view is trying to create somewhere these views that are not registered. So we need to comment this for a moment, and we're going to fix it later. Let's clear this. Right, let's try again. User. There we go. We have that. We have nothing here, but can we go to admin? We can't, because it's not there. So it's working as we want. And again, we don't see the options here. How can we fix that? Let's fix that next, now that we are in this class. So what we have to do is programmatically add those. And fortunately, we have a method that returns those options or the routes, right? Oh, I forgot to, maybe I should assign these to a field so I can use it. Okay, here auth service, dot get authorized routes. Now, how can I get the role? Because I need the role here. One way of doing it is when we authenticate the user, we use the Vaadin session to store the user object, for example. Class user. So now we have it here. User.class. There we go. Yep. Let's leave that. Actually, it's explicit here, so it's not confusing. And now that we have the user, we have the role as well, and we can call that. And we can convert these to a stream again. And we want to map these to components. So let's take, these are authorized routes, and we need to create a component, and this create tab method does exactly that. And it takes first the text, which is for us the name in the authorized route, and then it takes the view, which is this one. Now we don't need that, and we can just return these if we convert these to an array. Now we need to create an array of components. So that's how you do it. Let's compile. So by default, I can only go to login, which is good. But user can now go to home, which is very good. But how can we try now with admin if we cannot log out? So let's fix that next. And we're going to do that with a view. So let's create a logout view in a package to follow the same architecture we have here. And this we're going to register like that. Logout. And this can extend, for example, composite of vertical layout. That's fine. And in the constructor, what did I do there? We need to do a couple of things. So first we would need to navigate, or how can we do that? Well, let's start with the session. So let's create the session. Get this returns the HTTP session, and we invalidate that. So we're sure that that's going to be invalidated. Something I like to do also is close the Vaadin session. But before that, we can go to get a page here and set the location to login. So we return to that page. And I guess that should be it. So now we can log out by using the URL. So let's see. It should be here. Okay, so let's try that. Yeah, it worked apparently, but let's check again. So it's not here yet. What was it? Log out. It logs out. Very nice. So let's try with admin. And it has the admin view, and I can go there. And we don't have the option here, but we can log out like that as well. Now we should try also just to double check that everything is all right. Oh, this is something I haven't checked, right? That's very good that I made that mistake. User. Very good. It's working. Can I go to admin here? I cannot go. Very good. I can only go to those. But I would like to have the option here. So because we have the auth service dot get authorized routes here, I can just add one for the logout view. And the same for this one, let's see if that works. I will need to log in again because the server is restarted, or the application. User should be there now. Logout. There was an exception there. Let's check that. Node pointer exception. Why was that? Okay, it's trying to get, it's in main view actually. Let's check. All right, so it's trying to find this annotation, which it doesn't exist for the logout view. So even when we are not using it, we need to specify something there. Now we shouldn't get any exceptions here. Let's check that that's the case. User, let's check with admin now. Nice. Logout, no exceptions, login, and I cannot go to admin anymore. Very good, it's working. All right, let me know if you have any questions or ideas on what to cover in future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.